Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about yet another message sparked by that Patterson video. Gotta be honest, didn't see that being a real big conversation starter, but here we are. This one isn't so much about, the competition in the workplace, but rather culture. It's a long message, but I'm going to read the whole thing because there's kind of a lot in it. Starts off, thank the person who admitted they were scared even though they knew it was right, because being 100% honest, that thought had crept into my head too. But there's something that I notice far more and seems more important for me to understand. When I look at pop culture leaders, they don't look like me anymore. Logically, I know white men are still way overrepresented, but I just feel the cultural power slipping away. It's not really scary, but I'm uneasy with it. Pop culture icons are becoming more often women and more brown. I know that sounds racist. That's not really what I mean. I like them. I love that they're leading the charge for change that I know we need. I guess I just want my kids and their kids to at least see some representation in that fight for change. I don't want them to think they're the bad guy. And you don't need to say, imagine how they feel without representation for all those years. I know this is irrational too. Just hoping for a similar talk to help with this, I guess. There's a lot in this, right? Okay. So why aren't white men the pop culture leaders that are leading the fight for change? Because a whole lot of white men are advocating for the status quo. They're not leading. Leading requires movement. If you don't want change, if you want the status quo, by definition, you're not really a leader, are you? And pop culture tends to reflect those that are leading, those that are progressing in some way. So, by default, because so many white men have taken the position of we like the status quo, there's not a lot of them. Let's just be honest for a second. I'm willing to bet at least a third of the people subscribed to this channel tuned in the first time because they took one look at me in that thumbnail and were like, that dude's about to say some racist stuff. And they tuned in to hate watch, right? So that's why you don't see a lot of white men. But then you have this part that I found really interesting. I love that they're leading the charge for change that I know we need. I guess I just want my kids and their kids to at least see some representation in that fight for change. I don't want them to think they're the bad guy. About a year ago, and I could be kind of off on this time frame, but I think it was about a year ago, I'm sitting on the porch, and my son and his friend are talking loudly, and I can hear them. The friend wants to go to some march, and they're worried that their parents won't let them go. And not because the kid is not even old enough to drive and the march was in DC or whatever. They were worried that their parent wouldn't approve of them going. And they asked my son, because my son was just like, well, ask them. The worst they can do is say no. And the kid's like, yeah, what would your dad do if you asked him to go to this? He's like, my dad was in Ferguson. He'd probably drive us. What better representation that looks like you could there be than you? Nobody looks more like you than you. You want your kid, your grandkid, to have representation of people that look like you in the fight? You be that representation. It's really that simple. Yeah, you may not be on CNN, but you show up. And then that's all you can do. That's all it takes. You know, when you're talking about the cultural power, that leadership role slipping away, it's not being taken, it's being abdicated. You know, it's not that people are stepping up and say, no, you know, white folks don't lead here, don't try to help us, you know, achieve change. It's that they're not stepping up to the level that we probably should. But if your real concern here is your kids feeling bad about themselves because people that looked like them weren't in the fight, the simple answer is you get in the fight. That's it. That's all you have to do. And your kids and grandkids will look back at you the way people look at the Freedom Riders. Just get involved. That's all it takes. And you don't need to take a leadership role. That's the other part behind this. You don't need to take a leadership role. Just back them up. I hope that helps. I mean, the reason you're seeing less white men is because white men, not everybody obviously, but a whole lot have decided they want the status quo. Therefore, they're not really in pop culture. They're in that right-wing ecosystem, right? There's representation there, a lot of it, where you don't want it, right? But because they've kind of given up that role, it's not there. It's not, nobody's stopping them. And then as far as representation for your family, you be that representation. There is no better person. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.